Hello everyone and welcome to the Winecast. This is the 30th Winecast that I've done, and to mark the occasion, I thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about food and wine pairing. Actually, to talk about a very specific pairing, dry wine, especially dry red wine, and chocolate. What have I got to say about this pairing? It's pretty simple, really. Don't do it. Not even a little bit. It's a pretty bad idea. And by pretty bad, I mean it's really bad. Look, I get it. I know it's totally a thing. You see it all over the place if you're wine tasting around Valentine's Day, and even when it's not Valentine's Day, there's always some winery somewhere offering you a piece of Dove chocolate to go with their new Malbec or their Reserve Cab Sauv. Everyone does it, even people who should know better. And the reason they should know better is that there's a time-honored and time-tested rule of thumb that everyone learned in food and wine pairing school. And that's that when pairing a wine with something sweet, make sure the wine is at least as sweet as, or sweeter than, the food you're pairing it with. The reason this rule works so well is pretty simple, and it has to do with the fact that your palate measures sweetness as well as lots of other things relatively. So a dessert, especially an intensely sweet dessert, will alter your perception of the sweetness and of the tartness of anything coming after it. So a dry wine after something sweet will leave the wine tasting thin, acidic, and just not very good. This isn't limited to chocolate and wine pairings. In fact, it's the reason that so many people claim they don't like champagne, since the only time a lot of them have ever had it has been at a wedding where a very dry brut champagne or some other sparkling wine was served with a very sweet piece of wedding cake, and the bubbly ended up tasting like weak vinegar. Come on, you know this has happened to you at least once. Okay, so dry wine and chocolate bad, but what's good? Any suggestions? I got a million of them, but let's keep it simple, and here are 4 that you can try, and then go from there on your own. If you're not feeling very adventurous and want to stick with a classic, then pair your chocolate with port. A red port will have the sweetness to stand up to chocolate in most preparations, and it's also going to bring some nice red fruit and spice notes to the table that'll offset some of the heaviness of a lot of chocolate. No one's going to fault you if you put some port on the table along with your chocolate torte. If you want to up your game a little, though, put in the only slightly extra effort you'll need to find a Bagnole from the south of France. Made with all or usually a majority of Grenache, a Bagnole will be lighter in body and won't come off as syrupy as a port will. A lot of people that think very seriously about food and wine pairing think that it actually strikes a better balance with chocolate than its Portuguese cousin, and one obviously very smart wine writer, Julie Reed, called it a little French love letter to chocolate. Wow. And don't limit yourself to just sweet red wines with chocolate either. Check out Muscat du Cap Corse from the French island of Corsica for a Muscat-based wine that has notes of apricot, plum, and orange blossom, all things that go really well with chocolate, as well as hints of caramel, something that goes exceptionally well with chocolate. And if the chocolate you're looking at to pair is really sweet, we're talking some serious milk chocolatey goodness here, then bring out the big guns and go for one of the sweetest wines out there, a Pedro Jimenez or PX from southern Spain. Made from intensely ripe grapes, whose sweetness is concentrated even further by drying, a good PX has notes of fig and raisin that when paired with milk chocolate remind me a little of Nestle's Chunky Bars. Don't lie, you know you loved those things as a kid. Now, these are just some suggestions. The important thing to keep in mind is to follow the rule for sweetness. The one thing to watch out for, an intensely acidic sweet wine like a Riesling or a late harvest Chenin Blanc, or a very light sweet wine like a Moscato d'Asti, may have, for different reasons, a harder time with some of the richness and the bitter notes that chocolate has. So while those wines are fantastic for other dessert pairings, you may find them a little less than optimal for chocolate. So that's it for sweet chocolate and wine pairings, but how about a dry wine for savory foods with chocolate? Take something like a mole poblano, a sauce of chocolate, ground nuts, and dried black chiles served over poultry. Can you try a dry wine with that? I say go for it. You're going to want to choose a red that's known for having chocolate or cocoa notes like Merlot or Syrah. And even if the mole is slightly sweet, the flavors in a big, fruity but dry red can stand up to a little bit of that sweetness. Well, that's another Winecast, and hopefully you found it helpful and interesting. If you did, please like and be on the lookout for more casts, or better still, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and feel free to take issue with my feelings about chocolate and dry wines. I'm sure it'll make for a lively discussion. I'm the Unknown Winecaster, and I'm out. Enjoy the grape, but always enjoy it responsibly.